Good morning.
I think we have a quorum, so I would like to call our meeting to order. Welcome to members from the public. Could we, as is our custom, all stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, are there any comments from the public at this time? Well, I hope we don't have any questions either, because we don't have any answers. That's a big, thank you. All right. Recognitions.
You sat on Good morning, Chairman Denison, members of the board, Mr. Frazier, Carta colleagues, and the public. Sometimes the best examples of public service happens in moments when somebody simply decides to do the right thing. In February, on one of our very bitter cold days, one of our fixed route drivers, Terrell Barnes, picked up a regular passenger who was traveling with his brother. It was the brother's first time riding on a Carta vehicle, and he was a recent amputee who was wheelchair bound. Ms. Barnes took an extra few minutes to talk with him, explaining the Carta bus system, who he would need to call, which bus he would need to take when he got to his final destination, headed back. And she reassured him that Carta is by far the most dependable transportation available to resources for our community. Mrs. Barnes safely dropped the two passengers off at East Brainerd and Germantown and wished them a warm, safe rest of their day. Earlier that day, Mrs. Barnes had already come in early to pick up an extra run in addition to her regular route. After completing a full long day of service, she was preparing to wrap things up when she heard a code 1 come across the radio. She quickly realized that the passenger needing assistance was the same wheelchair-bound rider that she had helped earlier in the day. Without hesitation, she asked her operations supervisor for permission to take another bus out and return to assist him. Permission was granted, and even after an already long day, she went back out, picked him up, and made sure to deliver him safely to his front door, simply because it was the right thing to do. Moments like these are powerful reminders that our employees are more than drivers, they are ambassadors for our community. Mrs. Barnes has been with Carta for about 7.5 years as a fixed route driver. She says her favorite part of the job is interacting with the public. When she's not working, she enjoys spending time with her 9 grandchildren, reading, she takes care of her mom, and she's an avid baker. And her German chocolate cake is a fan favorite of her friends and family.
We demand proof.
We are very fortunate to have her as part of the Carta family. Her actions reflect compassion, dedication, and service that defines a true Carta ambassador. It is our pleasure to recognize Terrell Barnes as our Carta Ambassador Award recipient for March.
You guys, I think
So let
yeah, you later. Thank you. On 3, ready? 1, 2, 3. Good job. Congratulations. What did you guys do?
Thank you.
You know, that act of kindness
is not lost on me that it's kind of very, very important and valuable in the times we live in. And if people would demonstrate that more often in their daily life, the world would be a better place. So thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Staff updates.
Yes. Good morning, Chair Dennison, board members, colleagues, and our media members and our friends from the city. Thank you for joining us today. Several updates for you. The first thing that I want to give you an update on is our Connect the Corridor Safe Access and Transit-Oriented Development Initiative. This has not been a project that has been undertaken by CARTA before, so it's relatively new for our organization. But it also might be one of the best ways that we are able to demonstrate our value to this community, even for people that don't use the transit service. And so I want to take a minute to explain that. And to be clear, through this study effort, CARTA will have the ability to bring additional grant funding to actually pay for infrastructure. And what I'm talking about is building out of sidewalks, additional security lighting, bike lanes, and that's usually not an area that we've been involved in, but it's what transit systems do all across the United States. So it's a good value proposition for us. Our project is called Connect the Corridor. And I'm going to just explain it to you a little bit here as a reminder, and I've got one image on the screen. So CARTA received a transit-oriented development grant last year. It's $750,000 is the overall project, and so there's a significant amount of investment. For our purposes, we are studying what is our Route 4. This is the Brainerd Road and Lee Highway corridor. It's about 12.5 miles from downtown all the way out to Enterprise South. And what we're looking for out of this study is an assessment of market potential for development along the corridor. So we're talking about housing and job opportunities, but also for us, we're looking for land use policy recommendations that we would give to the city. But very specifically for transit, we are looking to assess the potential for bus rapid transit along that corridor. Bus rapid transit, different than our regular service that runs along the corridor, it would only stop at maybe 12 or 15 stops the entire corridor. So it's not stopping every single time. And what it's doing is it's going into specially built BRT stations. On the BRT stations, they're higher, so the bus is not taking time to lower, stays raised, people are paying for their fares off of the bus, and the whole goal is that the people are getting on and off the bus very quickly, and we would hope to cut the transit time, the travel time, in half when we get to this point. This is a long-term, multi-year project, but that's why we're doing it. But the benefit for the community could come earlier. So when we identify where along the corridor the 12 or 13 stations should belong, we'll know the opposite of that. We'll know where we are not doing any stations. And that's where the bold item here, and I'll read it to you, this is our opportunity to evaluate the infrastructure. And what I'm talking about is, do we have sidewalks completely, or do we stop having sidewalks along the corridor itself? Is there security lighting for people to walk safely along the way? So that's along the corridor. But also, because this is transit, we're going to be able to investigate perpendicular, so sideways, into the corridor, into the neighborhoods along the way. And do those neighborhoods have safe walking access? Is it well lit? Do they have bike lanes? And can they get to the transit system? And when we have all of that evaluated, we're going to be able to package that up, the improvements that are needed, and go and apply for grant funding to bring that money resource to here. So it's a win-win solution. I want to just kind of show you, and it might be a little bit difficult to read, but to make this digestible, this is the 12 and a half miles of the corridor going from downtown on the left all the way to Enterprise South. We've divided it into kind of 6 segments here, because what you might need for infrastructure in segment 1 might be very different than what you need for infrastructure in segment 5. And we've set up a steering committee made up of many leaders in the community, but also neighborhood representatives from 4 different city council districts. So this route traverses council district 8, 9, 5, 6. And so we've already done engagement with all of the city council members, and they are making recommendations to us for neighborhood representatives to sit on the committee and help lead this whole process. This will take about the majority of this year to get done, but I wanted to make sure that you were well versed on this because these meetings are already going on. And so let me maybe just pause there for a minute. I do want you to know that there is some grassroots effort already going on. Councilwoman Burrs in District 6 is already doing, they were out last Saturday and they'll be out the next 3 Saturdays. They are literally walking the corridor and documenting where there's vacant lots, where there's no sidewalks, where there's no security lighting, where they need bike lanes. That will all become input for the project, and we'll look to do the same in the other districts. I would put our treasurer on the spot just for a minute. Treasurer Allen's been at some of the monthly meetings that Councilwoman Burrs has hosted. Do you have any comments you would like to add to it?
I think what I like most about it is that it is informed by residents, but it's information that I think will be useful in putting together a comprehensive plan as it relates not just to the transportation piece, but also as it relates to how we use city funds on the corridor with a retail corridor strategy program that we're currently looking at that relates to facade improvements and fence replacements and all of those other kind of beautification.
This is for me actually one of the key points and perhaps represents a missed opportunity from the past. If we consider transit holistically, that is exactly when you begin to see the ripple on and knock on opportunities that come from access to government funding that makes infrastructure better, not just transit, but for all the youth as well.
Yeah, Roger that. Thank you for the comments. I just gonna show, this is a picture, Councilwoman Burrs meets on a monthly basis, and so we attend this meeting, and this is where we do a lot of the kind of talking about the details on the left here. This is Justin from CNE, and they're preparing for this walk that they're doing, this grassroots where they're taking the inventory. So we'll continue to partner with them. Any questions on this particular initiative?
I'll just echo those upcoming walks. I was a part of the one last weekend and walking up and down the road, documenting where sidewalks are and where there needs to be improvements. So you got time this Saturday or the next Saturday, that's fun, and you get to know your city a whole lot better when you're on foot.
There's a lot of opportunity there. Thank you for that feedback. So next I want to talk about part of our transportation improvement initiative, and this is the bus stop design guidelines, and these projects interact or they'll touch each other. So first thing I want you to know is that this is our transportation improvement plan, part of phase 0, and we classify things as phase 0, I do, as things that should have been done before we all took our responsibility here at CARTA. These are things that transit systems should always have. Under Doug Carlson's leadership, we are preparing now a policy that we will bring to the board that defines how our bus stops should look and feel and the specifications for each individual bus stop in the entire network. So the board has already approved our service standards and our performance metrics policy. The next thing that's coming is the bus stop design guideline policy. So we'll have a presentation for you. But the policy recommendation will come with a complete guideline for requirements of every single bus stop in the network. This includes things like the physical layout of the stop. And what I'm talking about there is the landing pad, the connecting sidewalks, and then also the threshold for amenities like benches, shelters, lighting, and real-time information. So this board will set the policy for the guidelines. And one important thing, I can't stress the importance of this next piece for you. We are in the process now of inventorying every single stop in the entire network. So there's over 1,000 stops. And this is going to give us really good information. So you know this already, but I'm going to say it out loud. The overwhelming majority of our stops are not ADA compliant. There is no landing pad. There are no connecting sidewalks. It's a post in the grass. It is not well lit for security. It's not attractive, and it's a deterrent from people using the system. And so one of the outcomes of the inventory process where we're out there, we're actually getting the GPS code for all of these, is we will create a bus stop improvement plan. We will prioritize all of the stops that are not ADA accessible. And similar to the last project I told you, we will go and target grant funding to come in, put in the landing pad, put the connecting sidewalks in to make all of these ADA accessible for everyone. And then we'll also then bring in the shelters, the benches, the security lighting, and all of those things. So plan to bring a draft policy to the board this summer for your consideration. And I would go ahead and take any questions that you might have on this particular topic. Yes.
Just thinking in like future, first, I love phase 0, things like addresses everything, what you have been doing, so thank you for that. Looking in future developments, like park developments, are you gonna have like, this is the amount of money that takes to implement a bus stop, so we can incorporate that in our funding, including the bus stop in parks development or like any other public future development?
I'm gonna try to, I think I understand your questions. The answer is yes, we're certainly going to include along all of our routes where there's an infrastructure need. We're also gonna package it and go try to get grant funding, even if it's, whether it's our project or not. But the other thing I want you to be aware of is once we have these design guidelines, we're gonna go over to the city and to the county and sit down with their folks and make sure that we're in the review process for new development that's being planned so that we can start from the get-go, and we're going to have those landing pads, the connecting sidewalks built out, hopefully as part of the development project itself. We don't have any teeth to do that now, but that's the review process. At my time when I was in Palm Beach County, Florida, we actually wrote it into the county code where it was a requirement that developers had to meet with the transit system, had to see what we were required, and then had to build it as part of the project. So it's important that the board understand we need the policy so that we can then go to the city and the county respectively so that we can make sure that we're part of that review process going forward and we don't find ourselves where we are today. Yep. Okay. Moving on, I want to talk now, I'm kind of moving to community outreach, so external efforts. Reminder for the board that we did do our first customer satisfaction survey. On your table, you should have a copy of the actual survey instrument itself. It is in both Spanish and English. And a reminder, this is the first time that we're really looking for customer satisfaction to gauge a baseline of how people are feeling about CARTA's delivery of service. And we're not afraid of the answers, right? So this is the first time we're doing this. We did onboard from February 24th to February 28th. Fixed route, Car2Go, caravan, shuttles, and the incline railway. We are tabulating all of the results now. We did not hit our target of as many surveys that we had hoped to collect. And frankly, there were many people that were not wanting to share information. I think that there is quite a bit of concern from our riders about being probed too much about what information do you want from me. So we kind of felt that from people. But also we think that we will take another pass at this in the fall when we have warmer weather, higher ridership. But the game plan here is that we will bring a summary of these results to the board for you to talk about. And then also we'll be developing some of our customer satisfaction plans moving forward. And any questions or comments on this particular slide? So this will come back to the board and we'll give you some recommendations on next steps. Moving on, we held our third Rider Advisory Committee meeting. This was on Wednesday, March 4th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. As a reminder for the board that maybe wasn't at the last one, what we did was bring back the items that had been introduced to us from the riders at the prior meeting. So we brought back an update on the veterans policy, bus stop, trash pickup, bike racks, bus stop amenities update. We shared with the Rider Advisory Committee our 20-year transit vision and the 5-year plan and talked about service changes in March and May. I would maybe like to ask Director Evitt, who is chairing the committee, if you wanted to maybe off the cuff, sorry to put you on the spot, should just share some of your experience with, this is our third try at this, we're getting practice at engaging with our riders, and maybe you could share your thoughts.
No, it's been really awesome to see not only how many people have returned, but like the vast majority of people that were at the first one are continuing to show up. And that's very encouraging. And, you know, we made every effort to make this an accessible meeting, but still it's difficult for everybody to show up to everything. But folks are making that effort to show up, and it's because we are addressing their concerns and reporting back. The veterans policy was huge. That's something that was not on our radar, and it took a rider letting us know that we were failing, and then we fixed it. So I've met with most of our riders on this committee one-on-one in some capacity at this point. They're amazing people. I think they will really inform how we do things in a more thoughtful way going forward. So I encourage everybody, if you get a chance to come to one of these, just to observe. I mean, that's honestly what I do for the most part, is I just sit back and listen. So please come check it out.
Yeah, thank you, Director Evan. I want to make sure that I give appropriate kudos to our external affairs team, outreach team, customer service team. So Brandon Meredith, Savannah Ward, Linda Bullard, thank you for securing the church location for us. Our planning team, Doug Carlson, Isaac Mercer, Tanikia Adamson, and then finally it's Larnzell here. Larnzell, thank you for your participation, our Director of Transportation. Any questions on the Rider Advisory Committee? Okay, moving on, also kind of wrapping up the community outreach part of this. I just want you to know that we continue our efforts with literally showing people how to use the system. We did travel training, Savannah there, she's got this down to a science now. But we took both the Chambliss Center and the Howard School out onto the system. These presentations usually start with a presentation in-house. We're showing people how to use some of the travel training tools. We're showing them the live location map of the buses. We're getting them oriented to the environment, but then we literally go out on the system. And I say we, it's Savannah, and she's so good at it. But we get so much good feedback, and then we almost always see a bump in ridership from these agencies that are using the service. So good kudos to the team. Any questions on our travel training program?
Do the bumps in ridership stay?
Often they do. So you'll see we will have some ridership statistics coming out, especially from our Read and Ride program. I don't know if we put a social on it, but we're way over 50,000 trips at this point. Consistent ridership from the students, so it does stick. Yeah. Okay, moving on and now focusing internally. So that was our external engagement. I want to talk to you about some employee engagement that we're doing. This is a couple of pictures from one of our bus operator listening groups. Happy to let you know that under the leadership of our new Director of Planning and Quality, Doug Carlson, he and the planning team and the executive leadership team recently held 2 different listening sessions with our bus operators. The first is in the development of our May schedule. What we tried to do is get in front of the operators and actually walk them through the changes that are coming. And so what we've heard from operators is the need for more running time on certain segments of the routes where they're constantly running late. They can't be on time. There's not enough time for recovery. And so we take that information and we get it from multiple areas, but this is one of the areas where we close the loop and we share where we added running time. We also talk about changes in the system itself, whether it be to the schedules. And then also, not pictured here, but we started to have the bus operator listening group for the bus stop standards that I was showing you. We want to get their input so that the bus operators are literally seeing these stops every single day, and they're the best source of like real information about what's working, what's not working, where are people not using them, what can come out. And so I was looking for our ATU trustees who are not here today. Did you want to make any comments on it today? No, you're good. Okay, so, what I would like you to know is, we have not perfected this process. We are just getting warmed up with this, and so what the board should expect, and my expectation of our team, is that these engagement with the operators are not just a one and done to let you know what we've done, but listen to you, similar to Rider Advisory Committee, listen to you, and then follow back up with you about how those changes took place. So we'll get that going on a more regular basis, but I just wanted you to see that we are starting that process a little bit more thoroughly now. Any questions on this? Okay, my last slide. I just wanted to share with you that yesterday was National Transit Employee Appreciation Day. We, as you know, we are always trying to be conservative with our money, but everyone, board members, you have in your seats a tote bag and a couple of snacks and a note. We gave these to all of our employees as well. Yesterday, we were out in different areas of the organization, and it's a small token of appreciation. We wish that we could do more, but we really appreciate all of the employees here. Everybody's working hard. And so yesterday, we tried to show everybody just a little bit of love on that. So thank you for your support on that. Any questions? That concludes my report here. Happy to take any questions, Chairman.
Colleagues, any questions?
No. Very top.
Thank you.
I have a question on something that you didn't report back on.
Sure.
I've been reading in the press lots of coverage on Erlanger Park. And I'm pretty transparent in my comment on life. Some of the reports are factual. Some of the reports I think are posturing. Some of the comments, frankly, are nonsense. To my awareness, CARTA has been very involved in wanting to provide transit services to spectators and participants with the shuttle parking, with all of the things that go around making the park work. And if I read all the comments, creates a lot of, I don't know, let's just say ambiguity around the situation. Could you update us on what is the actual status and what is CARTA's role and what does the future hold or what does it not hold?
Yeah, thank you for that, Chairman. And board members, just to calibrate you on this, when I first arrived in January of 2024, the deal had already been inked with the build out. We're talking about the new stadium for the Lookouts. And the deal had already been inked and was underway, but part of the community agreement that was also penned, CARTA engaged with both the Lookouts and the developer to find out what opportunities were there for providing access to the stadium. So I want you to know a couple things. For transit access to the front door of the stadium, we provided very specific specifications. And so a full space bus, a full size 40-foot bus, all of our caravan vehicles can get right to the front door and there's enough space for the bus to turn around. Should there ever be an opportunity for transit to be part of the parking solution? And I think that might be maybe what you're asking about. For the last year and a half, 2 years, CARTA has convened with Lookouts and the developer, and what we planned out was a game day shuttle in which people could park at either Shuttle Park South or the Chattanooga garage, and we would provide a bus shuttle that would take people directly down Chestnut into the stadium and back. And as that proposal kind of developed, it was clear, and just from my experience with doing game day service like this, we wanted a dedicated lane for the bus to quickly get it out of the stadium, because there's nothing more frustrating than if you're going to pay for a shuttle service and then you're stuck in traffic like everybody else. that was entertained and talked about by the Lookouts and by the developer. The city of Chattanooga supported that. But in the end, the Lookouts feel confident that they've got enough on-site parking for the games. And really asked Carta just to stand down on providing the service. And so they feel confident that they've got enough parking. Carta stands ready, should there be, traffic implications or there's a desire to have a park and ride or a express shuttle. We've got plans developed and we can step up to the table, if it's needed.
Do you know the capacity of the stadium?
Someone
anyone-
does, yes, yeah.
It's around 7,000, I believe.
7,000.
Believe so. It's 8,032.
Good. Well, let's hope that those 2,700 parking bays all service cars with multiple occupants.
Mhm.
All right.
All right.
What about
Thank you.
folks who don't have cars?
For folks that don't have cars, there are many options for getting to the stadium. So there's the walk itself, there's an ability to walk, that's a paved location. Transit, there are two alternatives, our Route 15, we have another route, Route 1, that comes down Market Street. And so there are opportunities to come either from downtown or for St. Elmo on transit. What we don't have is any type of detour into the system because it doesn't make sense for us because we would just be stuck in transit. And we really did explore and looked for any opportunity for the developer to provide a way in and a way out. There's just not right of way or land to do that. So there would need to be a dedicated lane for us in and out. And I think they're open to revisiting it should they find themselves at capacity.
Well, I think that's probably fair. They need to see where things work out. Because if my memory also serves me correctly, income from parking is supposed to help finance the stadium. Not so? I think so. I read that somewhere. So it would not be in the interests of the developer to have a whole bunch of cars parked in the Carta parking structures and us shuttling them in.
I won't argue with you. What I will say is that the partners have been really good to work with. So they made them, the developer, the Lookouts made themselves available, the cities made themselves available. We developed a couple different options. Everyone was supportive. They worked collaboratively. Bottom line is they feel like it's not a necessary service today, but we stand ready to provide it should it be needed.
So I think this is all good, and the business people need to make decisions that they think they are right for themselves and for their customers. I just want us to be sure that Carta is ready and able and willing to assist and to help mitigate any traffic or parking issues.
That's right.
A question related to that, so this new development will be a really good example of what you were saying. If we have something in like local policy that any new development has to have a stop. This shouldn't be a discussion if we have the policy in place.
Right, that's right. I mean, so, and it's not just the stop, like, and for something really large like this, and that's why when the policy comes to the board, there'll be specifications that are very detailed. In a situation like this, what we really would have wanted, and had we all been at the table maybe 3 years earlier, we would have maybe been able to make sure there was a dedicated way in and out of the stadium for buses that was not on one of the main thoroughfares. So that's exactly the point.
So what can we do for, like, does it happen again?
Happen again for,
That is not a policy or like we're out of the table.
I would say that we are widely invited to the table for these things. I think we have to be at the table earlier in the process. Like by the time we were all seated, it was baked. The deal was baked. And so there was no time to go back. And I would just add too that similar to the TOD project, if transportation was going to be part of it, then there could be some grant funding that could be brought to the capital stack that Cardiff would have access to. And so I think that those things are opportunities for the future.
I think we also probably just need to work harder with stakeholders and the city and the council and the
Right.
planning commission and all of these people to have a higher degree of awareness of public transit in as one of the criteria that needs to be considered for development.
Yeah, I think I wonder, you have been working so hard, so like working harder, I don't know how that can look like. So kudos around that, but what happened when all of us are like not here
Mm.
and it's the next era of CARTA, so how we can make a policy? That's maybe more my question, that is like a stipulation that any new development needs to take in consideration, have a budget for. X.
Which is what I think
Yeah.
I'm understanding, correct, is that you are proactively putting that in place so that in the future, when something is brought to the county or to the city, then baked within that plan, it will include access to transit and consideration for our buses of all sizes to be able to connect with other.
It's different,
Oh.
so, right now, when you do a development, X amount of buildings, you have to have X amount of green space. That's a stipulation, it's minimal, but we secure that at least people are gonna have a tiny bit of green space. So I'm thinking the same, if you do X amount of new, buildings or like capacity for 7,000 people, you have to have a bus stop. So it's not if we're in the table or not the table, it's like.
Yeah. I might be able to, so yeah, you're actually both right. So it'll start internally with us, with that phase 0, we gotta get our own internal policy set up first. And then even when we do the transit oriented development studies, part of what that will recommend are the land use policies. And I think that that will be our opportunity, zoning policies. And I think that that's when we engage with the city and the county on what we would like to be able to review as part of the development process thereafter. And there's a model to that. Yes, ma'am.
And then I would add to that, just from the city of Chattanooga's standpoint, as we start to reevaluate all of our incentives for projects, and some of those are TIFs, and some of those are, tax increment financing projects, some of those are pilots, payment in lieu of tax projects. What that would look like is our policies would then say, as part of the infrastructure for this development, there's a transportation component. But we would have to make sure that CARTA and the other partners have weighed in on what that transportation component looks like. And then the infrastructure, the increment that's used for the project would pay for the horizontal infrastructure for a project, but also assist with the transportation infrastructure for a project. And again, that would be in our policy, so that if developers coming to the table asking for an incentive, then the transportation piece is automatically included in that. But again, we don't know enough to build that piece out. We would be coming to a CARTA or an MPO or someone else to say, what should this look like and how do we make this into our policies?
Yeah, so I think it sounds to me, we're definitely headed towards this convergence. So we're gonna set our internal policies on what these requirements are. We know where our routes will be because we've got our 20-year plan, even if they're not in play yet. So we'll be able to articulate this all to the right leadership at the city and county. So it should live on beyond us. Yeah.
Any other topics, comments, questions? All right, thank you very much, Charles.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Any comments, questions, or amendments to the minutes as distributed? Brandon, those minutes took as long to read as was the entire meeting. I think it was literally a blow by blow account of the entire meeting. All right. If there are no changes or comments, can I ask for a motion to?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Alright.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Daniel, thank you for a very comprehensive statistical report. Any comments or questions? Corey, you always have comments or questions.
I
know, I'm in for it too.
I had an opportunity to think, and was kind of blown away at some of the behind the scenes stuff that he's involved in, and I'm just so thankful for his presence and his voice as they continue to develop out and fix a lot of the foundation. So, yeah, no questions for me.
But I really do get the sense, and I mean this very sincerely, that there's good focus. There's good science going into it, and a strong foundation is being built. And I think we will continue to develop our capability. Data is what gives you insight into your business, and we are developing that capability. It's good to see. Excellent. Right, I think the statistical report, we don't need to approve, it's sworn information, so since there are no further comments to that, let's move on to item number 8, the procurement report, please. Hello, Annie.
This is my favorite rap, let me just say on the. I love it.
Well, so can we gotta point over to our chief of staff, who is responsible for this rap. Scott, you want to stand up and let's.
Scott, we need a second one. Okay, so they can pass each other.
Yeah.
Its intent, for the record, is for locals to remember that we have this great asset. So as it circulates through the city, it'll be a reminder.
Seriously, if we could get a
It's
second one, I
working.
think pairing them, like you said, it'd be good.
Oh,
Well, if I may, sorry, I just wanted to make one comment. You know, I want to make sure the board knows that it wasn't a haphazard decision to wrap the bus. The board had a discussion about needing to look at off-season and draw attention locally for people. And so it was a very intentional, and Scott was very good about capturing that discussion at the board level and thinking through, like, let's do something really significant. And so this wrap is, you can't miss it when it's on the road. It's very eye-catching. And so I just want to make sure the board recognizes it's not just haphazard, it's intentional, and it's the team following your thoughts on it.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Scott.
Righty. Good morning, Chairman Denison, Board of Directors, Carter colleagues, Mr. Frazier, and the public. I'll be going over the procurement report for March, and it can be found on page 17 of your packet. This month, I'm bringing a report for sections A and B, board approval of new procurements over 50,000, and board approval for use of the request for proposals process. For section A, Carta staff is requesting approval for a 5-year agreement with Nuga Cleaning Services LLC for bus shelter cleaning services for a not to exceed amount of $300,000 over the 5-year period. The cost is $5,000 per month for cleaning Carta's current shelter inventory of 84. As shelters are added to Carta's inventory above that amount, an additional cost of $40 per unit per month is set for each year of the contract. This procurement was completed through a request for proposals process. For section B, staff is requesting approval of the use of the RFP process for Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, administration. The scope of work for this procurement requires that evaluation criteria other than price be considered when awarding a contract for this service. The RFP process will allow Carta to evaluate proposals based on qualifications, experience, technical approach, and other factors necessary to select the most advantageous proposal for the authority. That concludes my report, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Just a comment on the bus shelters. I know I try to ride the bus when I'm downtown for work. Just want to make sure that with this, we'll have someone that's going to be doing it more, I guess, with a higher level of frequency. Just a lot of trash and a lot
What
of.
is the frequency?
There is a schedule within the RFP. It depends on the location. Some of them are bi-weekly. I'm not sure, Brent, if there's any that are daily, but there is a schedule throughout the month. I think if you have any that you see that are
Okay. But it just gives kind of it's off-putting when you walk up to the station and it's trash
Garbage
or,
cans are full.
and yeah.
Overflowing.
Yes, really overflowing. So just wanted to just mention that, just to make sure that we have
Mhm.
the right
I'm
level of
glad you raised
frequency.
it, because the whole point of the cleaning is to avoid precisely that, and it's still happening. Then either they're not doing it, or we are not specifying the frequency adequately.
If I may,
go
just
ahead.
jump in here and one of the things that transit systems deal with all over the country. Even if we clean it every single day, typically what will happen is we go and clean it, it's all good, and then it does happen. People will drive up and they're gonna empty out their entire, like they empty out their car and like even we just cleaned it, like we just pressure washed it, we just cleaned it and now it's full again. So some of the technologies that are emerging out there, there's a couple different ones. Got these big belly, they're called big belly trash compactors. They actually can monitor how much trash is in there and then alert you when it gets full. There's also, just from some of our camera systems, some AI opportunities that Daniel's exploring for these things. So your point is taken, and we will certainly make sure that for this particular procurement, that it's on a schedule, that the high ridership stops get more frequent cleaning than the low ridership stops. And then I would also just recommend that the board, if you will allow us to flesh out something that's gonna be more of a solution, because I'm not sure that just more frequency, which was gonna cost us more, is gonna be what you're looking for the end result.
Well, look, I would comment that if the case is as you described, that people come and empty out their vehicles or trash can or whatever, we are still providing some form of public service, because the alternative is they dump it on the street, as we sadly see all over our beautiful roadways in this town.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one other quick question or comment. Does this RFP include anything in regards to how sometimes people kind of tag or graffiti to any of the shelters? And the only reason why I mention that as well is that as we add more of the shelters and as we add more of the benches, et cetera, just the overall appearance, like, to be quite honest, that's the kind of first appearance before you get on the bus. So that's just wanted to mention that. If it's not included now, or if you could get back with me, that's fine, but just want to mention that as well, that we maintain the actual shelter.
It is included, and I think kind of been talking with Brent before this meeting. So they have their schedule, but also if if Brent gets reports, he will reach out to them. He said they're usually pretty quick, like within an hour, being able to go back out and address any issues that have been.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Could we, just while on the subject, could we continue to explore opportunities with schools, arts associations, et cetera, to potentially make car bus stops more fun, like involved? I know we have on Lee Highway at Howard, we have had participation with the schools and with students making window clings or other things. Can we maybe continue to do that? Because I think there's a lot less opportunity and potential motivation to mess up something when it's fun and inviting and just throwing that out there.
I think the answer is yes, of course, we can do those types of engagements. And then I would also say that what I'd likely come back to the board with in terms of priorities would be, as we bring you the bus stop guidelines, we're gonna bring you the mobility hub guidelines right behind it. The mobility hubs will be the different size shelters, so small, medium, large, and kind of to your point, what we plan to put in there are like the helpful things. So I don't know of anywhere in our system where we've got a big system map as like the starting point, so you can orient yourself to where am I in the network. And so I think it's going to start with what is the organization, and this is where I'm going to come back to the board. What's important for a rider to see, as you say, it's the first thing they see before they get up the bus. So I think that's good. It's the real-time information, all those amenities, and then I think the opportunity, to your point, to make it fun and something that people own. I think in other communities, certainly in Palm Beach County, we did this. We got neighborhoods to adopt particular shelters. And so once we got in there and then put our stamp on it. In other words, we've got our policy. This is what our standard looks, this is what our shelter looks like. This is what's in it, the map, the lighting, all the things. then we can invite others to help maintain it thereafter. So I'm 1,000% supportive of it. I think it's a really good idea. And through our community outreach efforts, we've already done a little bit of that, but we could certainly continue to prioritize it.
I agree, I think a great idea, and also just wanted to ask if we are, I thought about collaborating with parks on the purchase of these smart trash cans. I don't think they call them Big Bellies, but,
It's a brand.
okay, it's a brand, okay. Yeah, if they're getting a bunch of those, they love them, they're expensive as all get out. They're
It's a good idea.
Yeah, agree. I'll take that note and coordinate with Parks on that. Also, just for your situational awareness. For our TOD project along the Brainerd and Lee Highway corridor, that's another big challenge that those communities are seeing is that there's a lot of litter and kind of trash buildup. So even as we're analyzing and making recommendations there, I'd had a conversation with one of the council members about let's be intentional and maybe it's those. I use the term big belly because it's attention grabbing, but like a big belly every so often, they're solar powered, like, and so that would be a kind of a group effort with the city and parks or whoever it is, neighborhoods, but yes, I agree, the collaboration would be good.
And just to have more context with trash, which is a problem almost everywhere. The more, and I did that survey that CNE is doing, so one is part of a national kind of like study that they do in communities, so you're gonna be able to see what happened when you put more attention in Brainerd in this corridor. And then they're gonna do the same measurement in 2 years. So you're gonna be able to compare after you kind of like do all these resources. And one of the things that they want to see is pride. And a way to like measure pride in communities is trash. So the more proud I feel of my community, I'm gonna take more care of it. And then I'm not gonna like loiter. So like, it's one of kind of like what affects trash, like in those like, so like, it's slow, but you're correct. Not because you're gonna clean it each day, it's gonna maintain clean. So it's like a community part there that if I feel more connected, more pride about my community, more proud, yeah, that was true.
Yeah. Great.
Any other questions, comments? And it occurs to me that if you did your job less well and procured less, Melanie would have a far easier task balancing the budget. All right. Is there a motion to approve the procurement report?
motion.
Second,
Second.
any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it was an enthusiastic endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm on.
Your next topic, please.
Yes.
Yeah, Brent just went to check.
When is over?
Yeah.
Should we pause the meeting for just 1 minute?
Smells electric.
Yeah, it does.
Let's determine what's going on. Probably what happens when I think too much.
Burning stuff.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah, can you go look?
Jane's gonna have some.
Yeah.
She believed it was in there, but.
Okay.
Maybe give it 2 minutes, we done lost Bill too, man.
All right, Annie, I hear the first thing on your list is procuring a new air conditioning system, is that right?
It is in the
It
capital.
is in the capital, it is in the capital budget.
And it's funded. Okay, until I hear differently, I'll still go through and provide an update today on the board resolutions that are in your page 19 of your packet. Staff is recommending that the board approve board resolutions 609 to 611. Approval of these items will authorize staff to apply for and administer recent grant awards. Carter recently applied for funds from public entity partners, James L. Richardson Driver Training and Cybersecurity Programs, and intends to apply for Federal Transit Administration formula funds once appropriations are available. The PEP grant program requires the submittal of a board resolution authorizing the grant application and committing Carter to provide 50% matching funds. FTA typically requires us to provide authorization for their processes before we apply. Resolution 609 authorizes the grant application and 50% matching funds for the James L. Richardson Driver Training Program. This grant will be used to reimburse Cardiff for safety and training materials, including DVD-based training. Resolution 610 authorizes the grant application and 50% matching funds for the Cybersecurity Partners Program. This grant will be used to reimburse Cardiff for network monitoring solutions. Resolution 611 authorizes the CEO or his designee and the Director of Grants and Procurement to apply for, execute, and amend FY26 Federal Transit Administration formula grants for sections 5307, 5337, 5339, and 5310. Carter staff recommends that the board approve board resolution 609, 610, and 611. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions to these resolutions?
Just a quick comment. It just seems like DVD training is outdated. Do they? And I'm just mentioning it. I mean, I know they have like different simulators or different things of that nature. So just want to make sure that whatever training that we're offering is up to date from a technical and usage perspective. Just a note.
I can discuss, but if there's further questions, I'm sure Mark can correct me. I think this is kind of having the baseline for our driver training, especially in current materials. And DVD is an easy way for us to get access to that. I know that there's other desires to do. I think we have funding for the bus simulator. It's in the capital budget.
I think we should take a minute.
Okay.
All right, please finishes.
And so I think there's other things that will apply to that, but they're farther, this is for just the day to day.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, is there a motion to approve resolution 609, 610, and 611?
Motion to approve.
There's a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? The resolution's approved. Thank you. I recommend that we pause our meeting here. I don't want to have people asphyxiated. Let's determine what's going on.
10 minutes, yeah.
All right. We could settle down so we can resume. Thank you for your adaptability. I will just grumble quietly to myself that there's a total absence of coffee in this room. Yeah. Would have foreseen the likelihood that we would have to relocate. But we are saving some money, and it's a good segue.
Yes. So next up on the agenda, AC on page 25, is the memo. And specifically, this is for the February 2026 financial report. The overall numbers indicate for the month of February 2026, Park Coast was operating loss of $182,000 and a year-to-date loss of $167,000. The 2026 budget still contains budget revenue for both the CARES Act and in-kind insurance proceeds, as we mentioned in the prior meeting. And those were recognized in 2025. So that will necessitate a budget amendment that will be proposed. So that will be forthcoming in the meeting as well.
In a future meeting.
Yes, sir.
In the next meeting. I think we just need to do it. I mean, we've been aware of this for a while.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
The challenge is, I'm correct, you don't need it April, because that will push us back to May, so to the point, we would need to do that sooner, am I correct?
We can do it as soon as you like. We know the numbers, it's $2.4 million of income insurance proceeds. They were reflected in 2025 financial statements. Because they were estimable and probable, and it's intended to get the revenue replacement for the lost revenue that happened. And the other,
May 21st meeting, if we find time.
yes.
Okay, please fine with that,
Yeah.
so just making sure we don't get people based on
Yes.
this month.
And then, so those two items, just wanted to note, also, just for, the overall perspective, you can see, screen, and I apologize, Chairman,
My eyes in the back of my head.
the overall performance of the loss of 280,000 for the month, is primarily, and is also true of the actual year-to-date column, in 1/6/2007. That the caravan services, while a bit expensive to operate on an ongoing basis, because it is very specialized, it is very point to point. And it is a critical service to our overall community. So it's something that we can really support, want to continue this, just want to focus on the fact that, well, our bottom line, isn't, profitable at the moment. We are very close to profitability, and given that, the incline is about to enter its strongest seasons. So that's very, optimistic for our future overall financial performance. So I'm optimistic that we are headed in the right direction. As you recall, we were at a larger actual year-to-date loss for the year, and so this is improving over time. And it's being driven too by a lot of the overall performance. You see the transit for the month is close to breakeven. That's a fixed route. Our shuttle and garage was very close to breakeven. So we're trending in the right direction of a lot of our performance.
And we're still finding a lot of efficiency, correct, in our lane and just in general, so I would anticipate continue to increase.
Yes.
And then also, we're not looking for therapy to be profitable, correct? So to understand this, be right, I was even different. Fine now, because I do appreciate you bringing this to our attention, because we do see some differences, and I want to make sure we highlight that, sure.
So staff recommends that the board approve Carter's financial report for the month ended February 26th and the fiscal year date period then ended.
Are there any other comments or questions? So look, as I said moments ago, we've been aware of the situation and the complications with the timing of the revenue recognition from the insurance payouts. Which is why it's kind of, it would be useful to get to the point where we adjust the budgets formally so that we kind of are not flying in the fog, but we can see at the moment we're sort of flying on the instruments. And the instruments are telling us that the situation has gotten better since we last discussed it. So that's encouraging, and it may well be that as we move into incline revenue generating season, that this further ameliorates the situation. I would, however, say that it might be prudent, and no doubt, Charles, you will tell me that your team is already working on it. We need to ask ourselves a what if question. What if we don't close the gap by increased revenue generation? Then what course of action will be followed? Because what none of us can contemplate is having our final meeting of the year with a $167,000 operating loss. That would be somewhat problematic. And the sooner we start course correcting, the better. So I would perhaps also then ask you, as part of our discussion for the budget adjustment for the next board meeting, that we also take a look then at your sort of plan B contingency measures that would be implemented at a time that you deem operationally prudent in the event that we aren't able to fully bring this to a black zero. Does that sound fair?
Yes, it does.
It's particularly good timing in that as we're working through this draft budget for fiscal 27, I'm doing deeper dives on expenses. I'm doing more questioning of the activities. I'm doing, as I'm putting this information together, as any good budget process should do. So that is part of the considerations with as I'm building out extra budget.
Because if we do decide that we need a course correction, the sooner you start with it. Any other comments?
Doing what you're doing, looking good. I think what we're seeing going forward is giving us a level of more clarity on what's going on and options and how everything can work.
Is there a motion to approve the February 26th financial report?
First, approved. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Melanie, now we start looking to the future. Draft operating budget 27, please.
So our operating budget for fiscal 26 was $34.8 million. Our proposed draft operating budget for 2027 is $33,268,000. And it includes the local funding indicated below by the city of Chattanooga, Hamilton County, East Ridge, and Red Bank. So some of
Could you just back up?
Sure.
Are these contributions from the county and the other cities? Well, I asked the question in case of all of these are our asks.
Yes.
I might clarify.
One is
There-
more certain.
So just to be clear, the ask of Hamilton County was significantly more. And the budget, the board approved a preliminary budget in January. We submitted closer to $700,000. What the draft operating budget is doing is giving you our confidence level and what we believe we will get from Hamilton County. And to answer your question, Chairman, both the city of East Ridge and the city of Red Bank, those will be different as Melanie kind of gets her hands around cost per trip. We're looking into some grant opportunities, but for where we are in the process of the budget development, this is the confidence level of what we want to present today. For the city of Chattanooga and the importance of the board approving the draft budget today, what you approve today is what we will submit to the city of Chattanooga, which is why it's been drawn to your attention here. And then the behind the scenes information is the city of Chattanooga is still putting their budget together. And we are not sure what will be the end result of that. So that number does not have as much confidence, but I think if I steal a word from our CFO, this is going to be a little bit of an iterative process, as it has been for us for the last 2 years. We iterate, but today we want you to understand where we are in that process, kind of the confidence levels. The answer to your question is this is not what we submitted to Hamilton County, but with what we feel confident that we will receive.
Okay, understood. And to my further understanding, based on sort of prior discussion, the contribution here from East Ridge and the Red Bank are essentially the funds that they need to provide to compensate for services that are essentially loss-making that we provide to those communities.
I would say it in a different way. Yes, and the board will recall that we've been engaged with the city of Red Bank and East Ridge for many years. When this board came on and I came on, we looked at that and we were only charging those entities $7 per trip. And CARTA was absorbing the difference. And at that time, the full cost recovery was $52 per trip. That number, cost per trip, has changed significantly in the last year with our increased ridership. Much of the work is being done with overtime. And so now we will reevaluate the cost per trip with a projection in mind. And renegotiate those contracts again, and that's where we're looking at. About the opportunity to, the goal will be cost recovery, full cost recovery for these services. The other piece of the pie, just for the board, last year Hamilton County subsidized both East Ridge and Red Bank. And we had more confidence last year than we do this year, and so that's not reflected here yet. And so we'll continue to work with the city of East Ridge, city of Red Bank, Hamilton County to get as much revenue as we can. Our goal is to continue to meet the demand. There's demand for service. So that's really what we want to do. And then, of course, the cost recovery for those other agencies.
And the Hamilton County contribution here. As I recall, the county used to provide funding. And then it dwindled to 0. So this would represent a sort of a partial recovery of the previous situation.
If I may, last year, so 2 years ago, the county with Mayor Wong pulled all funding from CARTA. Prior to that, CARTA had received $120,000 every year for the last 20 years with no movement. They pulled the funding because they didn't understand what CARTA was providing for them. Last year, the county provided upwards of $300,000. It was a significant double what they had ever done historically. And we are hopeful that they will even continue to grow. The reason for the confidence level here is that in the discussions with the county, they have not signaled to us what they will fund. I will be presenting to Hamilton County next Wednesday afternoon and going through. I've already met with Mayor Wong and his team. We have large support from Mayor Wong's staff. So we feel good, but this is the level we feel confident with today.
Charles, you mentioned that part of the reason for the funding levels of the past is that the county didn't understand what CARTA does for them. Is the county beginning to understand what CARTA does for them?
Yeah, the answer is absolutely yes. So we send the county a quarterly ridership report. And so what they received this year was, they've received several reports so far, but what they saw from Caravan standpoint, huge 54% increase in ridership. And we helped attribute that to their contributions to East Ridge and Red Bank. So they saw that. The implementation of the drug court program, which is a small expansion to CARTA Go. For that program, we've reported out baseline ridership. And for that program, those riders are not only utilizing Caravan, but they are able to traverse fixed route with their monthly card. So the ridership is significant. And so they feel very good about that program. They hear from us on a quarterly basis on these reports, and so yes, the communication.
And
So I recall, sorry, Stephen, just before this is going to escape my mind because I have attention span for that. This transportation service that we're providing for the drug court. I recall I was present at the sort of kickoff discussion like 200 years ago. That's included in the 100,000?
That is not included.
That's not-
I'm sorry. It is. That is included in the 100,000. We feel confident about that particular service. Is that the whole of the 100,000? Yeah.
So it feels to me that we could legitimately ask the county for more than 100,000. Because that 100,000 will be covering this sort of service that
We asked the county, so at the, and I'm well distributed to the board, and I recognize that you don't know, you don't see it as often, and so we'll make sure that we have it available to you. There's a one-sheet document that we'll redistribute to the board that lays out the $585,000 that we requested from Hamilton County. That's what we requested, and it was for the drug court, for support for Caravan, for pilot project, for an expansion of Caravan countywide, for the second hour free of parking. We put forward $600,000 worth of apps. They, in the operating budget, as we're trying to figure out where we're gonna land, we're trying to demonstrate what we feel confident in. I think what we'd like to avoid are any surprises when we get to May And all of a sudden Hamilton County is like at 100,000. So just to be clear, board approved a $600,000 ask to Hamilton County. That went submitted. That's what we're going for. Today, what you're seeing is our confidence level in the.
So that's an important clarification.
Okay.
There. So we will still, and I and every other board member stands ready to support you in your dialogue with the county. So the 100,000 we should take as a baseline,
That's right.
but it's not really gonna do the job. It's actually.
It doesn't do the job. And then the other thing, just for the board to remember, one of the asks of Hamilton County, you'll remember the Chambliss Daycare Center for Children, which is a longtime service that CARTA had been subsidizing. And one of these contracts that we're gonna discover is what is CARTA paying for? And so in our ask to Hamilton County is that subsidy for the Chambliss program, which is the direction that we took from the board in December, to make that ask. And so many of our board members have already kind of been engaged from Chambliss. We've been engaged with all these partners, Chambliss, East Ridge, Red Bank. They are all doing their full court press as well. In some cases, we're going together. We're trying to play the numbers a little bit, so we feel like more visits from less people rather than just one visit from a group is more effective. So they're all activated and looking for the support as well.
Very good.
You're welcome.
I hope I have a few comments for your future slides.
I have a question, and is you have stated, so looking at the numbers, I mean, it makes sense to explain there, all of that. Is there a percentage, like a, I don't know, like who's healthy, but if you look at a city budget, it's a practice that says you have to allocate X amount of the budget for public transportation, it's like that. So can we, to understand more where we stand on this, yeah, from 0 to 100,000, that's an improvement. But in percentage of like budget allocation and the practices, that's pretty off. Like, so just to understand more. Maybe that's for now.
I can take a stab at this and Director Abbott will know this information fairly well. I think what you're asking is, you know, from the people that we're asking for, maybe compared to peer cities, what percentage of their budget are going to support public transit? And what I can let you know is, for the city of Chattanooga, it is a small, I was looking to see who's in the room. It's a relatively small amount. It's only 2% of their budget. Whereas compared to our peers, and so you look to Knoxville, it's 6% of their budget. You look to South Carolina, it's 6 or 8% of their budget. And so that number, and we can distribute this again to the board, which I think is important. We're below our peers for percentage of city budget dedicated to transit.
Yeah, and I think it would be also more fair to understand the idea of like, because smaller, the budget is smaller, and 56,000 is like a different percentage. Like to show like, yes, it's the amount of money that they're contributing, but it's like X% of the budget.
We can.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of them will be long and I'll be free.
This sounds all on this.
Well, okay, thank you.
They were here for it.
Please. And thank you for passing this out. I am very concerned when I look at this Hamilton County dollar amount of what we think we may get. Just to be quite honest, looking at this, it's ridiculous. I mean, we basically have the city footing the bill for transit. We do not have the county stepping up to the plate at any considerable dollar amount. I hear what Director Peterson is saying in comparison to the city of East Ridge, city of Red Bank, but the real issue here is we have the city of Chattanooga putting this whole bill, and that's problematic. And you know, how long can we expect for the city to do this? Especially when we understand year after year, everything continues to go up at a considerable amount. We need to have some some type of different conversation when it comes to the county. If we need to figure out ways that we need to align what their values are for the county, then we need to look at that. To me personally, I would think based on all of the conversations that I'm hearing and watching from an RPA standpoint, it seems like they really should be looking for us to expand into the unincorporated areas of Hamilton County into other areas. And I'm not even hearing them coming back with that. And then I've already stated previously what I think about the list here, so I won't restate that today, but I think you all understand what my thoughts are here. I want to ask that we go back to the county and have the conversation in regards to how are you going to support public transit? And it cannot be a whole bunch of one-off situations, and it can't just be, from what I'm seeing here, the $100,000 is basically the problem that they created. I'm using someone else's language, but for moving resources to an area where people don't have access to. So that's really what's going on there. So really, we're not asking them to do anything, or we're not expecting them to do anything except for pay for the problems they cause.
If I could, Charles, before I allow. Sure. You can provide the sensible answer. I will just set you up so that you look really good. Part of the dilemma that we have, and minutes ago, Charles said that the county sort of pulled back their funding as a reset to evaluate what is CARTA doing for the county. I think there was, at best, a gray area of understanding, and at worst, a belief that CARTA does not support the county, and that essentially the transit service is for the city of Chattanooga. And I think that the CARTA team is somewhat trapped in a rock and a hard place. Because on the one hand, given the absence of adequate funding, which we are all very familiar with, that severely curtailed CARTA's ability to even serve the core areas with the kind of quality product and frequency and reach and all the things that we know very well. That was a very significant impediment to CARTA's ability to indeed extend services of any description into the unincorporated areas of the county. And so you now end up in this dilemma. Well, I'm not going to provide funding to CARTA from a county's point of view because we don't get enough services into the county areas.
Right.
But until you provide the, you know, where I'm going. So that's the dialogue that we need to have with the county now, try to unlock the situation. And your question, I think, is another one. What is the county's vision for public transit for the county? The question.
Okay.
And I know that Charles and the team, they try to keep me out of these meetings because I am very disruptive to the constructive nature of the discussion.
No way.
Because you should never have incompetent people in the room. That's why I am not there. But maybe you could elaborate on that, because I know you are having this ongoing discussion.
Yeah, if I may, and thank you, and I don't mind the comments. Here's the situation, and I want to be fairly direct and also respectful. I had my annual evaluation recently, and in the comments that I received, one of the areas for needs improvement is developing a relationship with county. And for me, what I want the board to is that I have personally met with the mayor and every single commissioner. Vice Chair has taken me and sat with different commissioners to talk about CARTA. Director Sandifer went, Director Culp went when I did my presentation, and my conclusion is that the county has no interest in supporting them. And it's one step further. They don't want to subsidize anything for the city of Chattanooga. And so the approach that I recommend, and I will take direction from the board. I will take direction from the board, but my recommendation is to find the strategic ways into what will resonate. And so these projects are not haphazard. The second hour of parking free is the result of a conversation with Mayor Wong about wanting to drive economic impact in downtown. And he wanted to know, is there a way that we can support that? And I said, well, maybe you could step on the success of what we're seeing, like, right? Utilization of the garages has gone up. Maybe you want to pay for the, so it is, it's a pet. It's, I know the word pet project is for me, it's an opportunity project to demonstrate our value. The drug court is what they asked us for. It's something asked for and we can provide it. And we get more benefit from that than they do, I think. A caravan subsidy is, the argument there is that it's staying away from the nasty. I sat down with Ken Smith and literally he told me the words to stay away from. These are the words you want to avoid. And Chattanooga is one of them. And so the East Ridge and Red, as the East Ridge and Red Bank, those are opportunities for us. And the talking point is, it's for seniors, it's for persons with disabilities. 45% of these trips are for jobs. It's economic impact. The Shamla Center is for students and education. And so while I know on its face, it might just seem like private pet projects, these are the things that the staff and I believe could get legs in a situation where we've been told there is no support for public transit at these doors. So that's kind of the playing field. And I don't disregard any direction from the board. I will double down my efforts, but it's difficult to knock on a brick that's not, they're not interested on several fronts. So those are my comments, and I'm happy to take any direction.
I'll just, I'll just come back to that, like, I think, I mean, definitely the terms that you use matter, and, you know, play devil's advocate. When the new administration came in, we were in the middle of, with Charles just come on, and the city of Chattanooga wouldn't even give us more money. Nobody was giving more money. Honestly, we didn't deserve more money at that point. So the question of what are you doing with our money is a fair question to ask. And so we're never going to have the numbers. We certainly need public transit in the county. We're never going to get the numbers that we have in the city. And so to go and make the argument that, hey, you need to fund public transportation is just not, that's just going to be off, non-negotiable. However, similar to the energy space, if some people you say, hey, we need to change these light bulbs because climate change, you lose half the room. But if you say energy efficiency, saving money, that hits a little different. And so I think with this, what I'm hearing and what I'm saying in the county is CARD is making itself available to be a tool in the toolbox of the county to use. And that this is the way we get into providing services and being the public transit opportunity for them. And so I think, though it can look like past projects, I think it's an opportunity to be valued to CARD. And so one day the county's like, on the front end of projects, they're thinking about CARDA and they're thinking about, oh, well, let's see what CARDA could do. And so I think it's just building that relationship and showing, here, these are things we can do to be valued to the county.
And I appreciate that. In particular, just like one of the things we put on here was the last from the bottom bullet, Gwinnett County Pilot Program. This is literally it's seed money to start a countywide caravan service. And so I put it in terms that would resonate with them. And so this, and the way I described it was, listen, you know, great aunt got her hip replaced and, you know, she has a car, she doesn't need public transit, but she might need to get to rehabilitation for those 6 weeks. And this is where, you know, this type of service can be helpful. So I want the board to be aware that we are being both strategic and putting a lot of energy behind it. And I also invite the board to engage the mayor and commissioners, both with us, but also on your own, to help advocate and help us, we've got to find a way in, and then that's where I think numbers matter. Like, if there's enough people kind of poking at them from different sides, I better find something to do here, like, it seems important. But those are my comments. I hope that is acceptable.
Can I just say, I debate internally the degree to which I speak my mind constantly, because I don't want to make your job any harder than that. But I'm reminded of why I am here in this seat, especially somebody that rides pretty regularly, to represent our riders, thousands of Hamilton County riders. Just a reminder that the city of Chattanooga is in Hamilton County. I don't know how that they seem to separate that, but this $100,000 is not only ridiculous, it's insulting. It is very difficult for me to not get very emotional and upset, angry, sad, all of the emotions to see a number that low in the Hamilton County government. So I'll just say I appreciate everybody that is using the carrot approach to this. But I think there needs to be a little bit of stick as well. This has gone on that. This is frankly ridiculous, frankly insulting, and yeah, I'll stop there.
So Corey, thank you for expressing your thoughts, which will resonate with many people. Probably also ruffles feathers with other people. That's the nature of the world.
And I think we need to affirm the people that do have these opinions as well.
I think though that navigating this minefield pragmatic is probably more likely to bring us to a constructive outcome. Certainly from Carter's point of view, adopting a stick would probably be counterproductive. Other people can adopt sticks, but we can't. And I think therefore we as board members need to support Carter's mission and support our CEO and the team by using our office, so to speak, also to reach out to the county councillors, to the mayor, and have a constructive engagement. Because if I hear that the county is sort of the departure point is fundamental opposition to public transit, or at best, no enthusiasm for it, it's part of our task to use our insights and knowledge of the value of public transit to help inform. Because it's by sharing information and discussion and constructive dialogue that you help shape perspectives. And it is only when we reach that point that we could probably logistically expect to move the needle. And if the starting point is a series of projects where there is proven overlap of common interest, that's a good place to start. But I certainly commit personally to use my position to legitimately reach out to many of the board decision makers in the county to try to assist Carter team to move me. I think the county obviously has many challenges of its own, financial challenges that probably also play into the prioritization of where they want to allocate funds. But we need to make sure that there is recognition for the importance and the impact that the feasible and functional public transit has in the broader community. And it's not just the city. I don't know, and I'm not going to get into at all the discussion or even opine on whether Chattanooga is part of Hamilton County. I think we all know that. But I also don't know where this tension is coming from. It's probably rising there is one of my favorite. And I think we want to be caught up in it. Yeah. It's probably a place to place the weight. This is a difficult budget discussion.
There are lots of variables that go into a budget, that's for sure. And as we communicated already, the budget process itself is very iterative. You know, there are constant, oh yeah, what about, what can, consider this, consider that, how can we do things differently? So there's a lot of elements of that go into this budget, and so it is continuing to evolve, obviously. This is a draft operating budget. But again, is required for submission so that we may request additional funding as well.
So look, what I would just say, so we really can try to move on. You've heard all the sentiments expressed about the numbers on the board. I accept absolutely your approach that this is starting line. It's no good you put in the $10 million from the county and then we wake up and say, oh, it's not gonna happen. So we need to vote from here. But I think the general consensus around the board is, particularly with regard to the county number, we need to work a lot harder to get a legitimate allocation to cost operations.
Thank you, sir. And we'll have, so I'll be presenting and I invite all the board members to attend next Wednesday at 3:30 for the Hamilton County budget hearing. And I think what we could do is also look and see, is there a public hearing? Are there public, or did they do public comments at that? And that might be helpful too, is, so I'll be given 15 minutes. And so then if we had others speaking during public comment, so maybe Director Evan, I think this might be an opportunity to rally, my words, the Rider Advisory Committee. For our union members, maybe this is an opportunity to have some of the drivers go and articulate that we hear from people that would like to be able to travel more in the unincorporated areas, those types of things. So we have an opportunity as early as next week.
That's next week, Wednesday?
That's
What time?
3:30. Great. Oh.
On your calendar.
That's for me to get there on time. 3:30.
Might be,
Okay. Melanie, you have the floor.
so again, looking forward to, some of our 26 budget. So we took the stance of looking at our overall budget, and I also matched it through analytics with our current run rate to see, okay, where were we before, where are we now, where do we expect to be? And so I went through, and you'll see the detail of that is in a very large printout.
So just to pause you.
Yes.
So you put this is the timing of the revenue recognition adjustment that we
That-
spoke
that-
of minutes ago.
Yes. that needs to
So
come
if
out.
we revisit this topic in May, whenever,
Yes.
this is likely the number then that you'll be asking us to agree to an adjusted budget.
Not necessarily. The 27 budget is based upon our current run rate.
No, I'm talking of,
Oh, for the
for the 26 adjusted budget,
26 adjusted budget,
must be this number.
that is the prior number. The adjusted budget revenue would come down by that 2.466442. As well as a noted portion of the CARES Act money. So the revenue change would be a revenue reduction on 2026 budget.
All right.
So you're all saying the same thing, and on the printout here in front of us, the two highlighted green numbers are the likely amount of the budget adjustment that will be brought to the board for the fiscal year 26 budget. They need to be taken out of the fiscal year 26 budget. It'll be a downward recognition of that.
So it's a pretty straightforward budget adjustment.
It is.
Good.
So looking at the 27 draft operating budgets, I've included our run rate, as well as any sort of anomalies that I was aware of, in consideration, both of revenues, of our grants, and of our overall expenses. I did a much deeper dive on the expenses at the moment because, I wanted to ensure the feedback from our management team was consistent with the spend that I was seeing, what their needs were, for the operations and for running the operations and any expected changes. And I received feedback from our management leadership team as it relates to their spending, to their vendor usage, and to their expectations. And I've built all of those things into our bulk expense detail. So I'm open to questions. We have a number of items like the additional garages that have been added that increase both parking revenue as well as the management fee on parking garages. We have some open positions that I've included in, but given the fact that there are delays in hiring, they virtually offsets itself. Embedded within the grand total of the salaries and wages, it's inclusive of the overtime. So that run rate, I assume, would be the same at any point in time if it stays at that level. And again, these are just certain operating assumptions at the moment. I've included some reduction for service savings as we look at realigning some additional routes and looking at some service. I'll let Charles speak to that. Charles? Any of the service divisions with those upcoming changes.
I think I could comment on it just to say that in our budget process, we do anticipate some savings from some real budget, in particular with the UTC route, and we're looking at a couple of the other underperforming routes, so we'll make adjustments. We anticipate something.
And then again, looking at the professional services, we're doing a number of capital projects. We'll get to capital in just a second. We're doing capital projects, and so a lot of those professional services will really be more focused on capital focused projects that will be capitalizable items. And so I don't think that is necessarily needing to be as high as it was budgeted for last year. I took more conservative approaches on budgeting, again, looking at run rate, what we've spent so far through the year, and what the expectation is for the remainder of fiscal 2026. To gauge what line 27 should look like. So all of that to say that we end up at the net operating income loss of 0, matching our total revenues for fiscal 27.
Well, you may probably just, what accounts for the expected $2 million difference in passenger revenue?
We're currently running at a 4.9 million expected, but we're about to go into the heavier civil line. That run rate's going to kick up. So I use that as a baseline to think about from my 4.9 to 5.5 with additional revenue expectations that I anticipate.
I would add, if I may, that last year, the 7.5, I think, was a little bit over aggressive for us. And so I anticipate, as Melanie indicated, in our next iteration of this, drilling down into each service level and really forecasting out. So Melanie's approach, which is I am happy with for the run rate of what we're heading now. The next thing that I want to look into is where we see the ridership increases, some trending. I think we can safely forecast, but not to the level that was done last year. We want to be a little bit more conservative. So my anticipation is that number will change as we look into it. Another part component of that number is the UTC route guarantee. I am going to be renegotiating that contract this year. So that number will certainly increase from there. So I would maybe just close with, the board should anticipate that we're in March. There'll be 2 more iterations of it that you'll see. You'll see another version in May, and then your final version in June. You should anticipate the number will change.
I just want to follow up. I can't get attention to details here. I'm not gonna let the city check you out in the field, so I'm sorry about that. Again, 750,000 increase is the big, considering how far we've already talked about the city of Chattanooga is for cities. I'm not gonna ask, us to amend the work we've done here, but I challenge you to the city itself. Historically, Carter has gotten at best what we've asked for, and more often less than what we've asked for. My challenge to the city is see if there's more than what we're asking for. And I do want to call out a stats out public transportation. It's going to be interesting when I tell you at the end where this is coming from. So Tennessee is expecting to see a 27% increase in auto trips, and a 30% increase in commute times by 2045. Public transit pays off every $1 invested in public transportation generates $5 in economic returns. And public transportation is about 10 times safer per mile than traveling by automobile. So those are all things that we've heard before. And what's interesting is this is coming from the Kelly administration. These are statistics that they're putting out in preparation for the passenger rail project. So they are well aware of the ROI of public transportation. They are well aware of the safety improvements that public transportation makes in a community. So again, my challenge to them, if they believe these stats to be true, which I do as well, is to exceed our ask on this.
If I may, I'm sorry, I don't want to drag on the meeting, I'm sorry, but I must. I just want the board to know that the 750,000 additional ask is not arbitrary. At our last meeting, we introduced to you the 5-year growth plan for public transit. And in the fiscal year of 27, we would deploy the first round of that, but we would not do it until May of 27. And so there will only be 2 months of that operational expense for that deployment. And the deployment has some flexibility, but what it is it's a large increase in weekend service. It's a large increase in the changing of the shuttle. And I will be presenting to the city of Chattanooga on April 21st, the details of the 5-year plan, which they asked for. So we did our presentation to the city on December 16th. We got direction to come back to the city with, what is your plan? We've got the 5-year plan. That ask is tied to the 5-year plan, knowing that the soonest that we could put the operations into play would be May of 27. That's why it seems like a small number. What I would let you know is the fiscal impact in 28 for that number is an additional $4.9 million of operating. So I just want to make sure that as you're digesting and feeling things about it, the reason it's so low is it's only actually hitting us for about 6 weeks in fiscal year 27. The big hit for the same services is in 28. And that's what I'll be presenting to the city of Chattanooga is like, your commitment this year will mean that we'll purchase the vehicles, we'll put them into service in May. And while May might seem okay, next year might seem okay for you, what you really need to be thinking about is the 28 budget. And then in 28, it's a 4 million increase. 29 is another 4 million increase. So I will redistribute to the board the details of the 5-year plan so that you can see that after this first year, we go up by $4 million increments, pretty much that $3 to $4 million each year thereafter for the next 4 years out.
I think it's important to, Joel, that the city also understands the plan.
Right, and the board,
Because we cannot have a long-term plan and be nothing else than a series of annual budget.
that's right.
You need a strategic vision and you need a funding plan to deliver on it.
It's right. To board members, we have many of you are participating in a town hall series that's coming up pretty soon. And part of what we're going to be talking about there, my words, this year is an inflection point for CART. We are going to tell the city and the county, we've demonstrated what we can do. We've increased the way we're doing community interaction. We've increased ridership. We've increased efficiencies. We have a 20-year strategic plan. We've got a 5-year specific step plan. And the inflection point is going to be, and they asked us to do this, they're the legislators. How we bring them the plan, they decide how to pay for it. And so whether it's with a sales tax, a referendum, they go to the coffers and they pull out their thing. This is an inflection point this year. So I really appreciate your feedback, but I also want the board to recognize that this year is not the same, we're going year to year thing. This is specific. There's a plan behind it. It's been thought out, and I will take ownership for making sure the board is that you have all the talking points necessary so that you understand why this is the way it is. If that's all right. And please be critical. I mean, I live in it, so for me, everybody knows what's in my mind, but I don't know that that's the case.
I'm also aware that Charles and team have been working very constructively with counterparts in the city, as you have with CEO of the county for that matter, in terms of getting input and preparing input into the draft budget that has sort of stronger roots in what is likely to happen. It's no good that we put in an assumption into the draft budget of, I'm just making up the number, 12 million from the city, when you know it has the snowballs opening out of heaven. And so it's a little bit a bottom-up topic. Public funded enterprises have this as an internal battle. But I would say that I am kind of surprised, to be honest, that the draft budget is already as far advanced as it is. However, I do have a question on this FDA grant 5307. $3 million. Is that in the bank?
Not at the moment,
What has to happen for it to be in the bank?
but it needs to be drawn down.
So these would be, is that the last of our, if you said drawn down, is that the last of our COVID money?
Yeah.
No. Explain to me what it is.
Charles, you wanna take the 5307 conversation?
I can. So every year we get a combination of formula grants and we get competitive grants that we compete for. Formula grants, 5307, 5310, 5339. We receive those grants and we can use them for certain things. 5310 is capital only. We can only buy vehicles with it. 5339 is set aside for certain expenses. 5307 is our largest allotment grant, and we can program it for various things. Preventive maintenance, ADA supportive operations for paratransit, capital expenses, and operating expenses. This represents historical 5307 grants that we've received in prior years, specifically fiscal year 24, of unused capital dollars that we will program and draw down for operating expenses. And we feel comfortable doing this partially because of the number of capital grants competitive that we have secured. So over the past 2 years, I don't know the number off the top of my head. There might be a slide for it. It's programmed enough. If that answers the question.
So what I'm hearing you say is this is previous capital grants that we didn't spend on capital and that we're now converting into operational. And we'll replace it with new capital growth.
I think that's reasonable.
Sneaky.
I don't think it's sleepy.
Yeah, I think it's more.
Okay, any other comments?
Go ahead. We're here for this.
No for follow-up, but maybe for the next, part one. Maybe for the context about like, I have more understanding, like last year, it was more reactionary about like the budget, but I'm not a Chicago resident. Looking from the outside too, it's like, we needed to build trust, so we're asking. I mean, we trust the organization because we know up front, but like externally, it didn't, and we were still faced because then I think now we're being asked back, and now we can ask authority for the communities. So I think that, I don't know, I can understand more in context. That provides a lot of context for me, so okay. In terms of budgets and like the really, I see the classification and items in engagement or like more human oriented items or department. So like the programs that they're running, I think budget like values. So it would be
if we can specify or see where those programs be, but express it in number and like a budget item. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, if I may, so, on the first sheet, which is the operating budget,
Okay.
if you look under salary and wages, there's that large $15 million number. And then as you kind of look down, there's these professional services in different areas. We're rolling everything up, but what will happen is we will then turn over to all of the directors their budget for the year. So for example, Brandon, as the Director of External Affairs, is going to get a budget that he uses for travel training, outreach, all those community engagements, and we can give you that information. And what you'll find in there are, I think, the programs. And so it'll be the travel training, the website, all of those types of things. If that works, we don't have that level of detail.
Yeah, or like kind of make aware, at least in like even planning phases, when we work on that, we know that it's like engagement, but it's not priority in the budget, so like it's the one that you want the best. So I think the exercise of like reading how much is engagement as a line item, I know like there's up to the program has fun. That like secure that, I think the flavor research, you have put so much effort on it, so I think skip in the budget.
Okay, I'm gonna, if I may, Director Peterson, so I'll take the note and work with our CFO on how we best articulate that. Because you're gonna have those efforts both in operating and in capital, just as an example. On the capital page, we have the $787,500 for the transit-oriented development project that we talked about. There is a element of that that goes to community engagement. And so we'll need to break that out. So I don't know that it would come in the budget. I don't know that it'll come as part of the budget, but we will break out for you those efforts. So that you can kind of see it quantified.
Yeah, and I think for communication purposes, when we work with communities today, when we have an event, we source everything in a mile from the park. So everything goes back to the community as much as we can. So we say that $200,000 are X amount of money goes in order to like for community input, and also like focus point, prioritize community.
I got you.
Charles, I want to not be like a dog with a bone, but I want to get back to this 5307.
Sure.
I understand entirely that it makes sense to use historical unutilized capital grants to fill what is very evidently a significant hole. I don't know what you would have done if we did not have access. On the other hand, you know my reservations about using capital grants for operating in express before. And so I'm wondering if this 3 million gets replaced now by new capital grants, that's good. But how are we gonna make sure that those capital grants actually used for their intended purpose? And secondly, if they are used for their intended purpose, it will mean that in some future state, we will not have this safety net, so to speak, of unutilized capital grants to draw on operating costs. So, in a way, it's like kicking the can down the road a bit in terms of bringing to balance our operating revenues and operating costs. Because we actually have now a $3 million hole that we are plugging, but it's not a permanent solution.
If I may, I can answer that. So I think to answer you directly, but also to not have my back to the board. I think there's two things that this board will need to navigate the next 10 years. Number one, you're going to need a cash flow analysis of what's coming, what expenses are coming. And in particular, in my words, grown-up transit systems, when you have a recurring replacement schedule for your big capital items, talking about buses that are usually $1 million each. It is standard practice to take your, in particular, the 5307 allocation and program it for whatever you need for those particular years. And what happens often is in a year, so when you go, if you happen to buy 5 buses this year, when they hit useful life in 12 years, you got to buy 5 buses. And so in those high capital years, you might take your entire 53 allocation, which is $7 million. You might take that entire thing and put the entire thing to capital for buses because you need it in that year for that large purpose. And so I think I think the answer to your question is, I think threefold. Number one, I don't expect that number necessarily to be end up where we land for this year's budget. Number two, I think with our new CFO, what I'm going to be driving is give us the cash flow analysis, not just for this year. We need it for the out years. You need to be able to see it 10 years out. And then what are our opportunities for grants? Because the competitive grants are the ones that we don't know. We don't know what's there. We don't know what the use is yet. Sometimes they can be used for operating, sometimes for capital. So I hear what you're saying, and the answer is we need to provide you with a cash flow analysis and a grant analysis of how we plan to use anticipated allocations on a year-to-year basis. You need a spreadsheet that shows you 10 years. Here's the cash flow, here's the 5307, here's the 5399, here's the 5310, and how we plan to allocate those things.
Well, I thank you for that explanation. Certainly helped me to have a better understanding. It sounds like a good approach. In fact, it goes back also to doing that cash flow plan reconciled with our 10-year vision plan and the funding requirements, not just from federal grants, but from all the other local stakeholders as well. That's so everybody can see the big picture. That's right. From a long-term point of view. Now, Melanie, some of the things that we have been battling with in previous budget has also sort of centered on the accuracy or validity of some of the key assumptions that drive the budget plan. This year will be no different. What significant changes have you made with regard to assumptions that informed previous budget planning, which turned out in some cases to be the wrong assumptions? And how have we addressed that to make sure that assumptions are assumptions, and they certainly we call them the right different name. But at least you want to make sure that your assumptions are well informed and as accurately as humanly possible.
Given the fact that my assumptions are based on current realities, I've taken a realistic approach to the preparation of the budget and looking at how operations are currently functioning, the costs we are currently incurring, the inquiries with our management teams on the vendors that they're using and services that are being provided. So I've got that confirmation of the real world, boots on the ground, can't actually touching what those costs are to understand what the operation is doing. And you have, in my opinion, you're a much better finance person if you have a better understanding of the day-to-day operations. What's it take to run the business? And so I'm not a spreadsheet jockey that's going to just go run some numbers. I want to make sure that what we have is what we need, and that what we need I've included. So, and this is again with feedback from our management team, with direct conversations with our leaders to determine what their needs are, what the existing spend looks like, if it's going to continue down, if it's going to go up, and I've incorporated that into the strat budget.
So I'm hearing you say that you got input from the sort of business unit leaders to help drive the validity of the assumption with this. You didn't invent them at 10 o'clock at night while you were holding the budget.
No, as I have, spoken with each of our leaders, one of the things that I've been clear in communicating is that I want to help them be equipped to run their business. Each of them is running their own line of business and has a responsibility for the integrity and the operational efficiency and effectiveness. What do you need to run your business? And so that's been part of the messaging as these communications are occurring.
You know, you are obviously new to not only your role, but to the transit business. And that I have learned in the 3 years I've been busy with Carter that, 3 years down the road, I've learned a lot, but my knowledge is still very deficient. Which is why our CEO is to inform me when I ask stupid questions. I understand things better. This is, I think, normal. And I would just simply encourage you to, while you're on a vertical learning curve, learn from the people who surround you, been here longer. Because this is a different world. And certainly working with public authorities and funding mechanisms is also very new to me. And I know new to you. So don't hesitate to ask for help and input. Are there any other comments or questions in this area? Discussed it well and adequately. Think there's much more water that needs to flow into the ocean before we have a final budget, that is probably the principle. Thank you, Charles, for your oversight too. Well, we'll leave it with this level. We haven't spoken about the capital budget.
Not yet. So staff recommends that, the board approve the updated draft, this 27 budget, so that we may, put the request in the city for the agreed funding that is requested. We're required to submit to the city.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
On capital. So the 27 draft capital budget, I really want to spend a few minutes on this because I want you to look at this allocation. So in fiscal 26, we had $16 million for the funding projects and $41 million, you can spend at the bottom of the slide, 41 million unfunded projects. That's a total of $57 million, and only 28% of that was funded. In this fiscal year, our draft 27 budget, capital budget, we have $24.5 million funded and 25.7 unfunded. So we have grown to almost a 50% split. So I want to call that out because it's really exciting. It gives us runway for capital and runway for expansion. This is an indication of the success of our overall ability to garner these capital grants. That $18.6 million of contested grants have been won. And that is a huge contributor, giving us the ability to manage and fund our capital. These are just some of the examples of the capital projects, and we included both funded and unfunded examples, just to give you context around the types of things that we're doing. But it's everything from support vehicle replacement, the vehicle expansion, paratransit, cargo vehicle replacement. We have automatic passenger counting software, bus shelters, bus signs, bus shelter technology, driver barriers to look out for our drivers, mobility hubs, looking at a downtown transit center, our wayside cooling for the incline to keep our passengers more comfortable, drive technology, the downtown transit center selection process, shuttle replacements, garage upgrades to keep our parking customers safe and keep the areas well lit and well cared for. and a bus simulator. Those are just a few of the many projects that we have, both unfunded and unfunded. But I think it's a really exciting time because of the fact that we have been as successful as we have in garnering some really interesting and really situational changing type of grants that can help us do exactly what we were talking about earlier, improve the communities, improve the bus shelters, improve the sidewalks. There's so many opportunities to make those communities better. And we can have an active hand in that. And this is something I feel very passionate about because I believe that we can continue to just grow that space of influence and make the community that better. I feel fine when. Questions? On the work, we highlight that.
You're gonna run all these unfunded things in your Amex card.
Your Amex card. I haven't got one.
If I may, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make our meeting longer, but I have two comments here. Number one, I want to make sure that the board knows two things. When you're approving this budget, what you're authorizing it in today's draft, so you're not doing it today, but when you approve this in June. In the funded amount, you're authorizing the beginning to spend that money.
Okay.
On the unfunded side, what you're authorizing is for us to request the 10% local match from the city and for us to pursue those other competitive grants, right? So they're two different things. And then I want to be very clear on this. A minute ago, I was telling you that this year is an inflection point for the organization. We're going to give the city our 5-year plan. It's important as an organization that we are strategic about kicking off any of these big capital spends. In other words, we don't want to go buy $5 million worth of new vehicles to expand service if the city is not going to fund the operations in the following year, because if we find ourselves in that situation, we may well convert that capital grant to an operating fund to get us through the long end. So I want to have the board have confidence that there's rhyme and reason behind kind of asking for your approval, the timing of when we might purchase things, and you'll be aware of all these things. I'll come back to the board for execution.
Thank you, Charles. It makes sense. All right, are you done?
Yes. So the board action requested is the approval of CARTA's draft preliminary capital budget.
Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Wow, never said. Very different board meeting today. But important topics. And I think it's good that we discuss them thoroughly. Because discussion also brings understanding. All business. Okay.
Yes. For the sake of time, if it's okay, I'm gonna take the lead on this one. So board members, on page 34 of your packet, if you read this board item, what you will know is that the city is considering a new ordinance. It is dealing with consumer protections and parking enforcement. And I want to give you the kind of the plain English version of this. It's important that you're well versed on what's going to happen. I'm going to be presenting to city council next Tuesday, and then they will be considering this ordinance the following 2 weeks. So what we're talking about is the ordinance that I outlined for you in your document. I want to just have 2 points with you before I start. Number one, the parking ecosystem downtown is confusing for parkers, partially because there is publicly owned public parking resources. That's us. It's on street in our garages. And then there are privately owned public parking resources owned by Brightbase, Omega, and the others. They're right next door to ours, and people can't tell the difference. So they don't know where they're parking. So that's the first thing I want you to know, is that there's confusion downtown. The second thing I want you to know is, since we first visited this topic as a group in 2024, I have convened a quarterly parking meeting where we have invited the private owner operators to the table. And we have been talking collaboratively about both the problems with parking that we have and that they have, and opportunities for partnership. So I just want you to be aware that there's been input from private owners and operators in the ordinance. And what I'm giving you today is a preview of the ordinance, because if it's approved, we're coming back to this board to determine the licensing requirements if enforcing is to be allowed. Okay, so you're not making decisions today, but you will be making decisions in the not too distant future. Okay.
Well, I think it's important to add, not just a matter that there's confusion with regard to parking, especially in the public parking space, private parking spaces. But there's also a great deal of dissatisfaction in the public. That's because of business practices, because of costs of parking, and this measure is designed to address all of those legitimate concerns of the public.
You said it better than I did, actually, so I'm going to give a very specific example. In publicly owned public parking, our goal is not profit. Our goal is economic, moving the spots. So we're the lowest price. Right next door to us, the privately owned, for example, the parking lot that's on Cherry Street, if you wanted to go to Spice Trail for lunch, owned by Brightbase. There, if you go and park in that lot, there's a minimum of 8 hours to park. You have to park for 8. That's the minimum that they allow. And it's $4 or $5 an hour. And so you can't get out of there for less than 40, $50. That's what people are experiencing. And it's conflated. We get blamed for that. We get blamed for that. Okay, so this ordinance gives us a tool to help reduce that problem. Okay, so here we go. Behind you, Chairman. How we got here in 2024, new board, new management team, we all discovered a large amount of unpaid parking tickets. At the time, CARTA was able to immobilize vehicles, but our predecessors, the prior board, prior management team, never did. They had the ability, but they never did. So we prepared a compliance program and a consumer safety program, and we were going to implement that, and then state law changed that year, making it not possible for CARTA to move forward. And now what's required if we ever want to have immobilization, some enforcement, we have to have a local ordinance, which is what's going to the city in 2 weeks. Okay. Here's how we quantify that there actually is a problem. People are parking downtown. They live downtown. They're visiting downtown. They're parking in spaces and they're not paying, and they don't care to pay. And they're taking up spaces. And so people are looking for a place to park, and there's no place to park. One of the contributing factors is there are scofflaws. 64,000 outstanding citations. And if you value that, it's $4.1 million. It's a quantifiable problem. People are not paying attention to the rules.
So these folks are using public parking on the street, for example, and just using it all day.
They're using it all day. And they're getting a ticket for it and then ripping up the ticket. And they're also doing this in the privately owned public parking lot. So it's happening to CARTA and it's happening to the private owners as well. And so the bottom line, the real issue, I think, for this board is, although there is money involved, the real issue is there's less parking available to support economic activity downtown. We're not turning the spaces. Okay, and that we hear about that from restaurants all the time. Okay, so this is what the ordinance does for your. It's 4 things. It establishes consumer protections for any entity that's going to boot vehicle. In other words, everybody. So whether it's CARTA or a private entity, you got to follow the rules. Has to be self-released. There's got to be a 24/7 a number people can call. There's a maximum fine that you can charge. There's rules that are established by this ordinance. The second thing it does is it gives CARTA, through being the Chattanooga Parking Authority, the ability to enforce parking with immobilization on streets, in lots, and our garage. Number 2. Number 3, it assigns the Chattanooga Parking Authority as the licensing administrator for private owner operators, Brightbase, Omega, others. If they want to use this, they have to come to CPA to get a license. And then, this is kind of the best part, it allows CARTA Board of Directors to establish those licensing agreements. And this is where I think that there's the win-win that I want you to understand. So that's what it does functionally. What staff is going to do, if this gets approved, we're going to come back to you with the recommended licensing agreements for these private owner operators. So go back to the example on Cherry Street, that lot. If Brightbase wants to booth there and enforce, they have to meet our licensing agreement. So now they must allow for a 1 hour minimum parking. They can't charge more than 150% of the on-street rate. So they can't charge more than $3. They can't charge more than a daily maximum of $18. They can't charge, a ticket can't be more than the daily maximum plus $25. So now we're not doing this $75 ticket, this escalation fee. So these are the
Great consumer protection.
these are the licensing requirements that you're gonna enforce. So we actually, this is the magic of the ordinance. And then we're gonna require that they can't just boot anybody, it's gotta be somebody that has citations. So this is gonna come back to you for approval. I'm showing it to you here because as this lives, we already have buy-in from the private operators. Like they're like, yes, we can do this. We've got enough of a problem like you do that we're willing to do this on our lots if we're gonna boot there. So that's the next thing. Licensing oversight, CBA, so we'll retain licensing oversight. So if Brightbase gets out of line, if they're not following the rules, we revoke the license. We've got to investigate consumer complaints. We have to refer suspected violations to the Attorney General. We have to make sure that all the lots have the required signage. And we must maintain a public registry of all licensed operators that are allowed to boot. I want to make sure you're clear on this. I'm Brightbase, I've got 12 lots. I get licensed with you. I'm only allowed to boot on the lots where I met the requirements, the licensing requirements. So that doesn't mean all 12 of my lots are $3. Where I want to boot, there it's the $3 per hour. Are you tracking with me?
Okay. But it also means that if they want to continue the current practice of charging $18 sort of minimum charge, they can't enforce it.
They can't enforce it. That's right. It's the opposite. So that's kind of the win-win. The other piece of this that we will bring to you for finality, but this is what we've heard back from city council members. This is not new. This was during the 2024 we did this. An amnesty and community support program. So we're going to propose to the board that you would authorize a 120-day amnesty. In other words, give people an opportunity to pay off their fines. But then also we're going to do a community support program. We're going to ask you to approve a hardship program. So somebody that is at a certain income level, they're unemployed, they're something, you'll define it. We'll be able to be on a monthly payment plan and may have a certain percentage of the overall fine reduced. That'll be a policy that this board sets. And then also, just to try to make this a little bit more savory for the general public, we will propose a food donation credit program. So this would be with a partnership with the Chattanooga Area Food Bank, where if you owe fines, you can do a standard fixed donation. So you can either donate food, it would give you an increased reduction off of your fine. You could donate cash perhaps. So if I donate $1, it's worth $2 off my fine. We will bring this to the board to define what those calculations are. And then we'll recommend to you that there's some sort of maximum. In other words, you can't pay off your entire fine with food donations. It's a lot of lit, up to 50%, 25%, something like that.
But still, this is a benefit to the general community.
It's a benefit to the general community for that. And so that is the end of that. I would happily take any questions on the ordinance.
That looks great, thank you. Thank you.
I'll be presenting to the city council on Tuesday at 3:30 on next time.
Just one real quick question. Would you manage the Chattanooga parking code?
We are the Chinese department.
So we already, okay, just making sure we already have all that within our.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of the signage stuff I saw was more about making people aware of ways to contact. Is there any, and maybe it's in there, I just don't know, any more requirements on signage to differentiate who these entities are, like requiring that it very clearly says the right base? I know we've made that from already to differentiate who we are, but is there any way in the licensing to say, if you want to be a part of this, you have to very clearly state who you are, point of contact? There's specific requirements both in the ordinance itself, but that we could also add to the licensing agreements. You've got your signage, the state law, your signage has to be, you've got to have your license number, your name number, so there's a specific requirement for that. I think what you might be thinking about is in the licensing agreement, can we take it one step further? And I think the answer is yes.
It's almost like a Chattanooga Parking Authority approved parking lot.
It's true, and we have a special logo that we introduced to the board last year that we could probably use for that. Something, and also I think this is the precursor to the Chattanooga Parking Club, which we haven't fully fleshed out.
Because I think it's important, people is what you said. The public will take time to be informed and educated, but they need to know when they are confronted with a parking lot. Is it gonna have an 18-hour minimum or is it the normal route? And they can only do that if there's some sort of signage that they can begin to relate to,
Yes,
you know?
yes, and some specific feedback I got, and I'm not gonna say this is done with coalition's intent, but a lot of these private lots have a big sign that says public parking. And I get that it's accessible to the public, but it's not.
Exactly.
So some sort of differentiator of our public parking means that those dollars actually go back to Chattanooga, whereas public parking is different, so. Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you.
We had a lot of for that differentiation, a little sure. What do you meant to say, blue market? You said. We have an executive session.
Yes, I would like to, before we wrap up, just ask all the board members in your handouts today, you received, there's a document that requires that, I think that is the ethics affirmation statement. If I could ask you to sign it, then we will return it, Rachel, to you, to Dina, I'm not sure who.
You can leave it here with us.
Send it out to this end of the table. I'm assuming everybody has ethics, so I'm comfortable knowing it. All right, Charles, thank you for, and all the people who prepared the content today. With that, your motion to,
It's not adjourned yet.
oh, I'm not, call the journey, yes, we need to pause for a moment, we're gonna go into executive session.
Yes.
So I would ask for the room to be cleared of all people who are not part of